Hello and welcome everyone to the main event this week. I'm Meeta Sani and I'm really pleased to be joined by our guest today, Lee Thomas-Wragg. Hi Lee, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you, Meeta. How are you?
Yeah, really good and really excited to be talking about our topic of diversity and inclusion. Being the month of love, we are celebrating and discussing LGBTQIA plus History Month today.
Yes, yeah, exciting.
Well, we've had you on our webinars before, so we are so happy to have and excited to be talking to a real expert and someone who's going to walk us through what we can be thinking about as organizations, because I think a lot of companies, a lot of HR people, they want to do the right thing, but sometimes they don't know how to do that. And you recently have set up your consultancy called Changing Hearts and Minds. Before I do the housekeeping, please tell us about your consultancy and the purpose of what you decided to put your work to going forward.
Yeah, so well, this is I'm doing a consultancy piece to help employers and organizations be better allies to the LGBTQIA communities, and to drive inclusion within their businesses. The name came about because as much as law can change and law can come and protect people from the LGBT communities, unless you change hearts and minds, you don't really actually achieve that much. You really need to work at changing the hearts and minds of the communities, and then that will just support any new legislation that comes into place.
Yeah, and it's when it becomes the part of the DNA of the people of an organization and the DNA of the culture and behaviors and values that they stand for, that it won't just be a policy in a book, but it will be what they eat, live and breathe. And that is so powerful. I'm excited to be working with you, Lee, and I'm excited to be having this session with you today. So we're going to be doing about 40 minutes as always. We believe everyone's time is super precious, so we try not to make it too long, but we try to pack it with lots of knowledge and information and suggestions that you can take back to your working world now and put into place. So to help you with that, Lee and I have also got a chat room going, which allows it to be interactive. I'm just going to do a quick hello while I'm talking, just to show you how easy that is. So hello to everyone. We also have a poll going today. Again, this session is for everyone who takes their time and gives their time to sign up and take away, important messages. We also want to understand what you're doing and what you need, because then we can make sure this session is angled towards that. And already looking at the poll, our question today is, what is your organization doing to celebrate LGBTQIA plus History Month? And we've got a few different options, and Lee helped me put this together, because as I was typing them up, I was just thinking, God, there's so many ways that we as organizations, even if you share this webinar afterwards with your people, what you could be doing. So the first option is an awareness session, pretty much what we're doing today, inclusion training, and even if you've done it before, you could think about refreshing it. Maybe you have a member of staff who is from the community, perhaps you're giving them a platform to speak and to bring their world to life for your employees. Or you could be donating to an LGBT charity. You could be reviewing your current policies of inclusion, or nothing yet. And at the moment, nothing yet is up at 62%. So Lee, I think we are right on time with today's session. We also have an option that if you've got something else that you're doing, please let us know. Let's put it in the chat. And Sandra, hello to you. I love that you say you're here to be educated. Me too. And looking forward to jumping in to today's topic. So Lee, we're going to break it down into a few different areas. We were going to talk about, first of all, the importance of LGBTQIA plus month, History Month, and why it's important to celebrate that in the workplace. But also then talking about what employers could be doing to not only celebrate this, but to really drive diversity and inclusion in the workplace. And for me, it builds. It's not just about having a seat at the table, it's about facilitating a voice. And the third area that we're going to cover, which obviously from the main group being a talent consultancy, we are always thinking about how we can help our partner clients when they're hiring, when they're training, to bring in people that can not just be good for their business, but to be good for the world and help their organization be good for the world. So we're going to be looking at how to hire, because when you have the right people in your world and the diverse people in your world, they then attract like-minded people. So that just helps it grow and grow. So very, very much looking forward to jumping in. So Lee, tell me, where would we start today?
So I am going to start, Mita, with something that's really important when announcing yourself and introducing yourself at a meeting, and that is the use of pronouns. So when me joining the meeting now, I would say, hello, my name is Lee Thomas-Wragg, he, him, his, and I have a consultancy, changing hearts and minds. I also work for Change Please as well, which is a fantastic organization supporting people that are homeless. But so my introduction will include my pronouns, and that is so important that everybody does that, so that it's really clear how to address someone. So if we don't do that, and somebody is in that meeting who maybe their gender is not the gender that they had at birth, and people might not recognize, and so it's important that everybody is able to say their pronouns and how they want to be addressed.
Yeah. And so simple. And I was looking at our world and know that we have to update our signatures, but you're saying not just signatures, but also when you speak and introduce yourself in any opportunity, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I just want to start by, we're talking about LGBTQIA History Month. History happened just last week on Sunday. So Kim Petras was a winner of a Grammy, and that's the first trans woman to win a Grammy. The Grammys have been going for like 72 years. Yeah. So what an achievement now for Kim to win this award. And yeah, I think, and Sam Smith being non-binary, the two of them together, really powerful duo, and a big achievement.
Very much so. We're getting a clap from the chat room.
Yay!
Very powerful, because it's such a worldwide stage as well that has been acknowledged from.
Yeah. And there's a lot of the media historically likes to write about things that maybe members of the LGBTQIA community have done wrong. So if one person from our community does something, that's covered in all the papers and tabloids. Yeah. Yet when something we do is good, or we achieve something, there's little coverage, but there's more coverage now that there didn't used to be. So I think things are changing. We're seeing more positive narratives in the newspapers. Though the trans family, my trans community, are still very much being attacked on TV, in the newspapers. So there is a lot of work to still be done. But at the moment, we're celebrating History Month.
Indeed, I was looking at some statistics about, in a workplace, how trans people and how the LGBT community are supported or challenged. And I mean, these are shocking stats till today. This is the Stonewall report. It says that 12% of trans people have been physically attacked by customers or colleagues in the last year because of being trans. And over a third of LGBT staff are still hiding their status because of discrimination.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? Hate crime towards the LGBT community to start with, rose last year by 47%. And towards the trans community, it rose by 58%. So I think there's a general feeling when we hang around with people like us who are very much in support of inclusion and everybody should be celebrated. We forget out of our world that there's a whole lot of hatred, lots of attacks at our communities and at all minority groupings that we still need to recognise, and we actually do need to stand up and make a difference to that.
And that, I feel, is the purpose of our session, is the responsibility of an employer and the systems and structures they can put in place, but also the bringing it to life to make it the DNA of an organization. You know, again, only 1 in 8 employers monitor LGBT pay gap. Only 1 in 3 update their diversity policies to reflect LGBT communities. So there's so much work to be done where the intentions are there.
Yeah.
They've begun, but it's just, you know, getting to the end where it really is all inclusive.
Yeah, good intentions are great, but actually it's taking action. And when I give training to employers, it's all about actually them leaving that session with actions that they'll be held accountable for.
Yeah.
So not just going away with raised awareness and feeling good, but actually something needs to change, and you need to be that change maker. So go back to your office and do this.
Yes. And so that would lead me then to start to talk to you in a bit more detail about what everyone here could literally make a list of what they could do back in their workplaces.
Yeah.
And step 1 is education, isn't it? Step 1 is understanding what the issues are, educating yourself on how, as a business and as an organization, your language, your behaviors, your structure, your policies, how all of that shapes the behavior towards the trans community and the LGBT community.
I would say, given it's LGBTQIA History Month, a good starting point is to go to Queer Britain, which is in King's Cross. I was there at the weekend, and that really shares details of the struggles that our communities have had, civil movement, and how we fought back and pushed for more equality. And it's beautifully displayed, so you can familiarize yourselves with everything, because often on comments like I get when I post something, say like on LinkedIn or other socials, it's people who have no lived experience telling me and my communities how we should feel. Oh, you know, you should just take that with a pinch of salt. Well, no, we don't actually. So unless you have that lived experience, please don't tell us how we should feel or how we should respond. But the History Museum helps give an understanding of that. And I think it's a good starting point anyway.
Yeah, I mean, for any minority who is, you know, prejudiced against in their workplace or feels underrepresented, step 1 is listening to them. So let's start by finding a representative. Let's give them a platform. Let's celebrate what they're about. Let's ask them, how would our working environment need to evolve to support you more and to give you that equanimity? And they have the answers. Businesses don't need to go out and, you know.
No, it's there. And I've spoken with organizations before where the D&I person wants to drive the business agenda or the business agenda for D&I, but so they have their ESGs in place, but their ERGs are in place, but they're not actually listening to what's being pushed up to them. Instead, they're pushing down on them what their agenda is, and that's wrong. It's got to come from the people in those minority groupings. And if there's an opportunity for them to all come together, intersectionality is so strong and it's so powerful. And often people with that are in one minority grouping might sit within 2 or 3 others. So it's understanding how we can support each other. Our lived experiences can then go on to support someone from another grouping.
And such unique perspectives, so powerful. That kind of knowledge and information costs hundreds of thousands from all of these market research companies. But it's about cultivating an environment of openness the knowledge comes from within, but the platform creation must come from the top. That you know, we as an organization, this is what we stand for. And now's a good time to start, but it's something that could be could be continued throughout the year. We actually have a question here. This is from Kenwin. Yeah. Hi, Kenwin. So Kenwin says, I'm working in an inclusive charity environment. I worry, though, that well-intentioned people have anxiety about causing offense, getting terminology, acronyms, and pronouns wrong, and this then stifles talking openly about gender and sexuality. Any comments on this? Great question, Kenwin, because even when I know, I fumble, and it's because I'm not using this language all the time.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's a great question. So a piece of advice really for that one is, why not have a group session, a training session, to talk through what's acceptable and what's not. Most people in my communities accept when things come from a good heart, that mistakes can be made. Things are changing all the time, so of course people need to be aware of those changes, but equally there is an emphasis on the individuals to go away and educate themselves. So encourage team members or direct them to certain influencers from the LGBT community. If there's any podcasts they can go listen to, direct them to those podcasts, because it's not really our place to sit and tell everybody all the time. Like if there's an intention to be inclusive, then part of that will include going away and also doing your own learnings. Yeah, absolutely. And avoiding making assumptions as well. As you said, get groups together, do learning. And would it be good to have an ambassador in the organization? Somebody like we have a mental health ambassador. Would it be something that you recommend for organizations to think about? Yeah, definitely for smaller organizations or mid-size where they don't have big diverse grouping networking groups in place, then a go-to person, an SME for either specifically for the LGBT community, depending on the size of the organization, or it could be somebody that's going to represent all of the diverse groupings. Yeah. Because the question about being offensive, that's absolutely not just relevant to the LGBT community. I know that also people who are disabled, often people speak with them with language that they're worried that it's going to be offensive, but it's not. So I think it can definitely cross all of the minority groupings. And I think workshops, so when we deliver our D&I training, we turn them into workshops. We have topics and areas to cover. So how should diversity be supported in our policies, in our language that we use, in our literature, in our marketing, in our internal meetings, and just running those sessions and letting people talk about the way they'd like to see it, and mix groups up, all protected characteristics, but also people that want to do right and be better, putting them together. And then those policies, you can't put every suggestion in on day one, but that then becomes the checklist that you go back to and know that you are delivering for the people, by the people, and that will then be embraced more, celebrated more, and upheld more, I would say. For sure. And the allyship is crucial. And within an organization, if you not just have like an SME person, a go-to person that's from a diverse grouping, but you also have somebody who leads allyship, then that person can actually have meetings with the SME and then go back to allies and share with them these right ideas. This is what's coming up next. Let's see how we can support as allies. Yeah. And Laura actually asks about how this, Laura's question is, do you have any thoughts on scalable work / activities we can do in large corporations? And well, certainly what I've just touched on, Laura, getting, a D&I expert in who you can create little work groups, you can create different areas of the organization. So, for example, it could be social events and how organizations, support the diverse workforce, and perhaps get a calendar and create an ambassador who's responsible for that calendar, and you can have them in different departments.
You can do, I love, I remember when we used to be at school and we'd have World Day and everyone from around the world would bring something of interest, like a show and tell or food. I don't even know if food's allowed with health and safety these days, but there are so many ways that even in larger organizations, these improvements can be embedded. But I would say start with a workshop. And if you want to talk about that separately, Laura, I can give you an outline of how we run those workshops. They're very powerful because they come from the people, and I think they feel really empowered and therefore supported by that structure.
And I would just add to that as well for Laura. So something that's really crucial for large organizations is to give back to the communities, and setting up relationships with LGBTQIA charities, and then having members of the business involved in fundraising or actually going out and doing outreach support. So working with the charities, there's no better way really to understand people from the LGBT community than go to charities that are supporting the more marginalized people in our communities. Yeah. And then there's ways as well around looking at maybe acting as mentors for young LGBT people, going into charities where they work specifically with that demographic, and going in and giving talks on career opportunities, how your organization, the big organization, is inclusive. What's really key is that you have visibility. So the people in the business that are LGBTQIA should be kind of showcased in a way so that everybody can see, because once you see that visibility, it then inspires you with confidence to go work for that organization. Yeah. And it's inspirational. And then those people acting as mentors and offering mentorship programs, and role reversal as well, is reverse mentoring, not role reversal. Reverse mentoring is a favorite of mine, because I often will sit with young LGBT people and hear what's going on in their world and learn from them. It's not just about an LGBTQIA History Month is absolutely remembering those who came before us, seeing how we can continue and how we walk in their footprints, because they went through so much persecution to get to where we are now. I never envisaged being a gay married man with a career and a dog and all of this, and being able to move away from a life of shame. But here we are. And so, however, not all of our communities have that same privilege. So we've just got to keep going. And if you look at things around the globe and the persecution still in place, Qatar being an example, the World Cup was not inclusive. If you look at the treatment of LGBT people in Qatar, they have conversion therapy in Qatar, where people are discovered by using gay dating networks, and then they'll go in and they'll find they set someone up in the catfish thing, and they go in once they've discovered that person is then taken of their own free will and locked up and in intense conversion therapy for prolonged periods. So that's in Qatar, but that's happening all over the place. So
we can't take it for granted.
We can't take anything for granted. No, over 300 trans people are murdered every year, although the hate crime that's going on. So we have come a long way, and this month is to celebrate some of those. So there's some real positives, but the
serious message is that we've come a long way, and now it's important to create the traction of that, to build from that, right? And again, I think this is where employers so want to do the right thing. And there's, the questions in the chat today are very much, how can we? And it's making it accessible in a way that is it's all inclusive. It's where everybody, because we know that the most diverse organizations have the most engaged people, they're most productive, they have the best creativity, they're the most, they attract the best people. So, you know, they say if you can see it, you can be it. And so in an organization, especially large organizations, get your ambassadors, get your diverse ambassadors on your website, get them on your hiring page, make sure that your recruitment processes account for people who are diverse. Ask people to recommend from their communities people that you want to work in your organization, so you can keep the consistency of diversity, not just in your workforce and celebrating who's there now, but for the future as well, future-proofing the discriminatory structures that happen when you have it all in your existing team, but you don't plan for it for the future. So align everything, I would say. That is so important. And that's something else we are looking at. For example, in application forms, making sure that you spoke about pronouns when you yourself.
Gender is a huge thing. So inclusive language, reading an advertisement which would say something like, he or she will report into, that needs to go, because what about they?
Yes.
So there's the spectrum for gender and sexuality is becoming larger and a bit more blurred in terms of lines, because things are more fluid now. And some people might say, well, we've always done it this way, we're going to continue to do it this way. But if you look at a recent report from Stonewall, I'm not sure if it's the same one you saw, but Gen Zs, 71% say that they identify as heterosexual, 71%. And of baby boomers, 97% identify as heterosexual.
So
less people are now saying I'm straight, and maybe are fluid or identifying as gay, lesbian, bisexual. So organizations also need to recognize this, because there's less Gen Zs as a population, as you know, and if people want to attract young talent, then it's got to be presented to them in a way which is inclusive of who they are. And I know there's going to be battles for who's going to attract the best young talent. Well, this is something you need to be putting into your recruitment strategies.
Yeah, very much. We know the challenge for skills, the challenge for retention, the challenge for attraction is huge at the moment. It's the hardest it's ever been to get great people. So mobilizing Gen Z into a working world where they feel recognized, valued, able to be their authentic selves, that is going to pay back so much to organizations. And really having the right partners to walk you through that, whether you engage with us or whether you already have your people doing it. What I would say is that for Lee and I, this is something that we want to, for myself in the diversity space, being an Asian woman, I have always tried to find ways that I can help young women who don't have, somebody that they can base themselves on. And I only had men around me, but I didn't see myself as boy or girl. I just wanted to be successful. So we've got to continue to, we've spoken a lot about it being LGBTQIA plus History Month, but all of these processes and thoughts and systems can be made, adapted to all diverse and protected characteristics in your workplace. So actually, you get more bang for your buck with this session, because the principles can support your whole diversity and inclusion policies going forward.
And just when you said that, Mita, about yourself, it also just reminded me of one of the most, for me, sweetest, most magical moments of the LGBT history is in 1985, when Margaret Thatcher decided to close down lots of the coal mines, and miners were being really disrespectfully represented in the media. But the LGBT community decided to because miners were finding themselves with no money to buy food or anything. So the LGBT community hosted lots of events in pubs and raised money to make food parcels to give to those families.
Wow.
And then the Pride happened that year, and coachloads of miners turned up to walk and support LGBT. And this is just a beautiful part of our history, which also shows two very different demographics, two very different groups coming together in the face of adversity to say we're standing united. And that's why I really feel the power of diverse groupings coming together, having that one voice, is such strength.
Yeah, that gave me goosebumps, that story, Lee. I didn't know that. And it's actually community, isn't it? I think that what we have lost in the growth of technology and in the growth of, you know, this global village, actually we've also lost the power of community. And actually, let's use technology, let's use our global reach to create a community, whether you're a small SME or a large organization. You can put it on your intranet. You can create webinars now to bring people together from all parts of the world to celebrate, you know, our differences that actually make us exceptional. Yeah,
and that's having access to that now is so important. Section 28 was when Margaret Thatcher decided that LGBT references would no longer be available in schools. And so as a result of that, school libraries had to check every single book to make sure there was no mention of gay people or trans people. And if there was, they were removed. But the irony of it is that few books had reference anyway, because society never allowed mention of LGBT people that were poets, writers, successful. Alan Turing, who pretty much helped us win World War II, following that victory, he was given no recognition of it because there was talk of him being homosexual. And actually then he was sentenced for his homosexual behavior to either prison sentence or a chemical castration. So he opted for the second, and then not long after having the chemical castration, decided obviously to take he died of suicide. So having now, we're not in the history books. There's for children who are LGBT, they can't find us there. So let's talk about successful people. Let's share it now. Let's get it all over the net. Let children see their ancestors and feel part of our journey.
But honestly, Lee, this is moving me more than I imagined it would, because the struggle to get to where you are today, I understand that from my diverse background, but actually there's so much more work to do. And I think organizations have done a lot of work in different areas, but this is somewhere where they've already got the policies in place. It's like extend it to make sure you incorporate the LGBTQIA community, make sure trans people are represented in these policies, make sure you're talking about all of it.
Yeah, I mean, please speak. I would say for me as a takeaway from this, please review policies around our trans community. There's a lot of publicity around trans being given a toilet or having a non-binary toilet, and that is really important, yes, but when you ask trans people, that's really low on their priority list of what they need. They need to have their birth certificate adjusted, they need their passport done, they need to have access to equal opportunities and rights. So, and currently they are being used by politicians as a bit of a smokescreen or scapegoat to distract from some of the really serious political issues that are happening. I mean, Donald Trump is leading his new campaign to be president again, and he's announced, this is his campaign, the first thing he's going to do is, if re-elected, is to abolish any programs in place supporting trans Americans. He's taking that as that's his strap line. And look at all of the pressing issues we have around climate change, unemployment.
It's filled, isn't it? It's awful. It's disgusting. And he has a huge voice, which is why we have to have our voices all in place to counter as much as we can to continue in a positive way. Lee, I've got a question from the chat room. So Sandra asks, is I am straight acceptable? I thought that the LGBT community preferred heterosexual as opposed to straight because it implies if you're not heterosexual, you're not straight, you're crooked. Just wondering.
Listen, I think if for you to say I am straight, I would not be offended by that at all. I'm hoping one day we get to a point where nobody needs to come out. Like straight people don't have to say, hello, I'm George and I'm straight. Yeah. As we have to come out and say I'm gay or I'm lesbian or bisexual or whatever, but
it shouldn't matter.
It shouldn't matter, but I think sometimes being overly cautious. It's fun, just ask one, I'm straight, and then if they look, just say, have I offended you by saying I'm straight? And have that. People are different and they take offense from different things, but personally, that's not offensive to me at all.
Yeah, well, and I think what you said there is that it's about the intention and it's about coming from a good place and then having the conversation and saying, hey, listen, did I get that right? Did I get that? Yeah. And just being together on this, remembering we're on the same team, we're all trying to get to the same place together. And, it's so powerful because actually small changes, creating a champion for diversity and inclusion, creating ambassadors for different protected characteristics, getting somebody from the LGBTQIA community, all of these steps actually, you can have one a month even, and just, do such a broad range of learning, understanding, celebrating, and people will love it because that then, it becomes part of your DNA, it becomes part of your behavior, which isn't just a policy in a book, and it becomes authentic. And then people will talk about your organization and say how proud they are of working for an organization. And there's nothing more powerful than retaining and attracting people than people saying they're proud of where they work.
Agree. I just want to add as well, Mita, that also if there's any HR people, and I can see my HR person Emma there, who I've been working on some DNA initiatives with, and I can't wait. But reviewing things like bullying and harassment policies is very important, and then making sure that is delivered in training to line managers. I've personally had conversations with a few guys that I know recently where they've had to leave their jobs because of bullying, and often it's verbal bullying or harassment, so there's no written evidence. Starting a grievance process when people are turning a blind eye to it, or they won't say yes, I heard that. Becomes one word against one person say against another, and so bullying and harassment is definitely still happening, and that needs to be HR needs to kind of come into the business and be with the people and kind of listen to what's happening and then see what training might be needed.
Yeah, to teach and coach, and I've been using this analogy of The Apprentice and how they have Karen or Claude with a notebook and pen, but actually immersing yourself and observing is so powerful.
Yep.
So Lee, we are coming up to time already. I can't believe quite how quickly our sessions go. As we wind up, I'm just going to go back to the poll just to see where we are. And a large part of our attendees, our community today, haven't done anything yet. So we're really hoping that you can take away some simple and yet massively effective approaches. Lee and I will be sending this recording out later. We're both on LinkedIn. We're both very vocal on LinkedIn. So please link in with us. Watch for our posts and drop us a message if you if there's a question that wasn't answered or something you're interested in. Please reach out. We love to speak about this, and we just want to help you get to where you want to get to. Awareness sessions was the biggest score after nothing yet, but also some inclusion training. So even that poll on its own gives you a list of options that you can take back to your world and start to put into place.
And don't forget as well, if for those that are Central London based, encouraging the team to go to the Queer Museum or going yourself, and then making some recordings or making some notes and sharing those in the next team meeting. It's free and it's very close to King's Cross Station.
Well, Lee, let me get those details from you. I'll include them in the recording so that we can make that available for everyone. Well, Lee, thank you so much for your heart, your experience, and your honesty. It's just so powerful, and I am certainly motivated to put this into our world, and I hope everyone who's attended today or watching the recording afterwards also feels equally mobilized to push forward and do good. Thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for taking part today. We're going to wind it up for today, but we will see you again at the main event very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mita. Thanks everyone for coming.
Bye all. Bye for now.
Bye.